I wasn't looking for concentration camps when I discovered the pattern. I was researching American utopian communities, those strange, isolated settlements that appeared across the countryside between 1840 and 1900, claiming to be idealistic social experiments. Brook Farm, Oneida, New Harmony, the Shakers, Harmonists, Fourierists, dozens of them scattered across every frontier region. They'd spring up almost overnight, attract hundreds or sometimes thousands of members, operate under strict isolation, rules, and then vanish completely. Most disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only empty buildings and bureaucratic silence. The official story is simple. Idealistic reformers, inspired by European socialist theory, attempted to build perfect societies. They failed. Economic pressures, internal disputes, leadership problems, the standard explanations for why utopian movements collapse. Every historian repeats it. Every textbook closes the case. But the more I dug, the less sense it made. Not whether these communities existed, that's documented, but why they were established in such precise, coordinated waves. And crucially, what happened to the people who lived there when they ended? Let me show you what I found. Between 1840 and 1860, something unprecedented happened in America. In just 20 years, more than 80 utopian communities were founded. Not spread across the century, founded in one 20-year window. The clustering is statistically impossible to ignore. In 1840 for alone a single year, 13 new communities were simultaneously established across different states, different founders, different stated philosophies, yet all launching within months of each other. But here's what struck me first, and what keeps me awake. The locations weren't random. They clustered around specific regions with surgical precision. Upstate New York, the Ohio River Valley, Western Massachusetts, Pennsylvania farmland, Southern California, and within 50 miles of nearly every major utopian community ever founded. You find something architectural historians can't quite explain: massive Victorian structures in towns that shouldn't support them, ornate hotels in frontier villages of 300 people, exhibition halls with Baroque detailing in newly settled territories, grand phalanxes that required master craftsmen whose names appear nowhere in local records, whose training is unaccounted for, whose subsequent careers are completely absent from documentation. The pattern repeats with unsettling consistency. Here's where the official narrative collapses. These weren't isolated social experiments. They were coordinated, connected, organized through networks that the historical record barely acknowledges. Look at this. In 1843, a man named Amos Bronson Alcott founded Fruitlands in Massachusetts. The same year, exact same year, the Wisconsin Phalanx formed in Ceresco. The Sylvania Association began in Pennsylvania. The Putney Community launched in Vermont. For separate communities, different founders claiming independent ideological inspiration, yet they operated under identical structural rules. They shared membership circuits. Individuals moved between communities with suspicious frequency, not defecting, but maintaining simultaneous involvement as if on reporting schedules. And most disturbingly, they shared architectural plans. The communal halls, the dormitories, the kitchens, the storage facilities showed remarkable similarity. Often identical floor plans used across multiple communities hundreds of miles apart. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. But coordination for what? The official answer is always the same: social reform through cooperative living. Yet the actual rules they enforced were anything but idealistic. Members lived in strict isolation from the surrounding world. Children were separated from parents for extended periods. Outside visitors were heavily restricted. Mail was monitored. Extensive record-keeping documented every member's behavior, psychology, relationships, and family history. In the Oneida Community, which operated from 1848 to 1881, John Humphrey Noyes didn't just control the economy. He controlled reproduction. He directed who could have children. He practiced selective breeding. He documented genetic outcomes like he was running an experiment. And the government allowed it, didn't stop it, actively looked away. Why would authorities permit this? Why would they fund it? Because these communities weren't about social reform. They were containment facilities. The evidence is in the timing. These communities appeared in waves corresponding directly to moments when people needed to be removed from public knowledge. 1840 to 1850, the earliest wave. This is when witness accounts of Tartarian survivors were still circulating, when knowledge of the lost civilization hadn't yet been fully suppressed. The communities absorbed these people, isolated them, removed them from public view, contained them behind compound walls under the pretense of utopian living. Then the communities failed, systematically, not naturally, strategically. By the 1860s, most had dissolved, but their purpose was already served. The witness populations had been contained, isolated, and separated from public discourse. Knowledge holders had been removed from the historical record. The suppression was complete. Here's what confirms this: the speed of dissolution. Real communities fail gradually, finances decline, members drift away, internal conflicts build. It takes years. But these communities, dozens of them, collapsed almost simultaneously. Between 1847 and 1858, most of the Fourierist phalanxes that had been founded so carefully just 20 years earlier vanished, not one at a time, in coordinated waves. Brook Farm burned in 1847. The North American phalanx failed in 1855. The Wisconsin phalanx dissolved. The Sylvania Association ended. Dozens in rapid sequence. It wasn't random failure. It was orchestrated shutdown. And when they shut down, what happened to the residents? There are no comprehensive records, no documented settlement of displaced members, no historical accounting of where thousands of people went. They entered these compounds, and when the compounds closed, they disappeared from the historical record. No obituaries, no documentation. Just absence. I started tracking the names, the founders, the community leaders, the documented members. John Humphrey Noyes, who ran Oneida and controlled reproduction for 30+ years. He left America for Canada, and his records vanish into privacy. George Ripley at Brook Farm. After the community failed, his subsequent publications drop off. His correspondence becomes scarce. Communities led by Arthur Brisbane, who had been so prominent as America's chief Fourierist advocate. After 1858, he disappears from major publications. Charles Lane, who founded Fruitlands with Alcott. His later life is barely documented. The question that won't stop haunting me: where are they? Not just the leaders, but the members, the thousands of people who lived in these compounds. Where did they go when the facilities closed? Why does the historical record open a gap exactly where their stories should continue? I kept digging into geographic patterns. These communities weren't just clustered. They were positioned strategically. The Harmonists in Pennsylvania, specifically around areas with unusual architecture. The Shaker communities in New England, precisely in regions where the densest concentration of unexplained 19th century structures exists. The Oneida Community in upstate New York, in the exact region conspiracy theorists have identified as containing buildings with documented construction that predates industrial infrastructure supposedly necessary for their construction. It's not that these communities were built on Tartarian sites. It's that they were built to surround them, to contain them, to explain away the anomalies that people were starting to notice. When investigators began documenting those impossible buildings, those Victorian structures appearing in frontier towns before railroads existed, those ornate halls in undeveloped territories, the official response was to establish communities nearby, to normalize the presence of large sophisticated buildings, to provide a cover story for the architectural mysteries. The communities served multiple purposes: containment of witness populations, normalization of architectural anomalies, and something else, something darker. The communities served as testing grounds. What happened in Oneida wasn't social reform. It was human experimentation, controlled reproduction, genetic selection, psychological manipulation, and it happened under government oversight, documented in community records, yet left almost completely outside academic scrutiny. When Noyes left America, those records became private. When the compound closed, the people involved dispersed into obscurity. The experiment ended. The data was secured. The witnesses were separated. This pattern repeats across communities: unusual family structures, communal child rearing that separated biological families, extreme dietary controls, sleep deprivation experiments disguised as spiritual practices, medical interventions documented only in internal records. The communities operated as closed systems where normal legal protections didn't apply. People who complained were labeled troublemakers and expelled into what? To where? There's no documentation of their subsequent lives. The silence is the evidence. The absence of records is the proof. By 1900, the entire project was complete. The last major wave of utopian communities had been dissolved. The witness populations had been contained and dispersed. The architectural evidence had been explained away by framing it as part of the utopian experiment. The knowledge of Tartaria had been successfully suppressed not through destruction of evidence, but through isolation and silencing of witnesses. The people who knew, the people who had lived in Tartarian societies or inherited knowledge of them, they disappeared into those compounds, and when the compounds closed, they disappeared into history. Here's what wakes me up at 3 in the morning. We don't actually know where they went. We have no systematic documentation of what happened to the thousands of people who lived in these facilities. The official histories mention dispersal as though people simply scattered and moved on with their lives, but there's no evidence of that. No census data showing where they resettled. No documentation of their subsequent employment or lives. Just a gap, a break in the historical record, a silence. What if the containment continued after the communities closed? What if the coordination that established them, that ran them, that dissolved them, also arranged what came next? What if the separation of members was intentional? What if the absence of documentation is itself the intended outcome? These weren't idealistic social experiments. They were facilities, designed, coordinated, operated under specific protocols with specific objectives, built to contain a specific population during a specific period of time, when knowledge of Tartaria was still circulating in America, built with secure compounds and isolation mechanisms, run under the cover of romantic utopianism, and then methodically dismantled when their purpose was served. The witnesses are gone. The records are sealed or scattered. The knowledge holders were separated, and their subsequent lives erased from documentation. What they knew, what they might have testified to about the lost civilization, about the people who built those impossible buildings, about the evidence that doesn't fit the official timeline. That knowledge was locked away inside these compounds, and when the compounds closed, it was locked away inside the silence that followed. The pattern repeats. The coordination was real, and the only questions that remain are the ones no one is willing to ask. Who decided to build these facilities? Who authorized the coordination? Who arranged for thousands of people to disappear into compounds and then disappear again when the compounds closed? And what were they so desperate to keep these people from telling the rest of us? The pattern, the coordination, the silence, these aren't accidents, they're design. And every day that question sits unanswered, the gap in the historical record grows deeper.